Hey, what's up, Spencer? My name is everybody, and welcome back to my channel. The mic that I used for my last video was not working very well, and so actually it wasn't working at all. So I went out and I bought a brandy new mic, but all they had were these like little lapel mics, and I don't really have a lapel to stick it to. So instead, I clipped it on to the end of this cooking chopstick, and now I kind of got like this Bob Barker vibe going on. Anyway, what are we talking about today? Today, we are going to be going over all of the books that I read in the month of January. I read 29 books. That's a lot, but really keeping up with my goal for 275 for the year. I am going to be breaking this video up into two parts. The first half is going to be talking about all of the regular, like, novels and stuff that I read, while the second half is going to be going over all of the manga and graphic novels that I read. So with that, let's jump right in. The first book that I read for this year was Run, Rose, Run by Dolly Parton and James Patterson, and I gave this book 1 star. Yeah, isn't it great to start off your reading here with a 1 star book? This book follows Annie Lee Curtis, I believe that's her name, as she goes out and tries to become a big country music star, and she ends up meeting a famous country musician who is trying to help her kind of achieve those dreams. But what this country musician doesn't know is that Annie Lee really has like a secret that she is trying to keep. She is on the run. There are people who are after her, and she is trying to get away from them. The main reason why I gave this book 1 star is that the reveal, the ending, the people that she's running from, once it is like shown to you, once you learn what it is, it makes it so that the entire rest of the story makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And it's just really confusing and weird overall. I'm actually going to be doing a like full-on video where I like talk about everything that happens in this book. So if you are interested in that, make sure to subscribe, because that video should be coming out at some point soon this month. I can't tell you exactly when, but hopefully soon. The next book that I read was Punching the Air by Ibi Zobei and Youssef Salaam, and I gave this book 5 stars. This follows our main character as he is in jail, juvie, prison. I know that there's a difference, but I'm not really sure what the difference is. Either way, he has gotten into a kind of confrontation with a group of white boys and ended up beating one of the boys so badly that now he is in a coma, and they don't think that he is ever going to wake up. And so now our main character is kind of on trial for kind of like attempted murder, or just like really bad assault and stuff like that, and it follows his time as he is in prison, juvie, jail. This is a really good book because so much of it is just about how art and things like that is incredibly freeing and how it's really important. And this is also written in a poetic way as opposed to the regular narrative, and has quite a bit of art that goes with it. I've read a couple of books that tell stories in poetry format as opposed to regular prose, and I think that this one has done it the best out of everything that I have read so far. I really like it, and I think that it's a good thing for people to recommend. I've read that people who like the book Monster would probably like this book, and I would have to agree with that. The next book that I read was Malice by Heather Walter, and I gave this book 3.5 stars. This is kind of a Sleeping Beauty retelling from the point of view of the evil witch, in which first she kind of gets to know Aurora and falls in love with Aurora, and then tragedy happens, and now we are learning about how Aurora was put under this curse, and how all of, the roses are growing around the castle and all the classic Sleeping Beauty stuff. Or yeah, Sleeping Beauty. Sorry, I got it confused with Snow White for a second. This book was okay for me. There were plenty of things that I did like about it, but also at the same time, so much seemed to be handed to the character, like, very easily. Our main character, Malice, like, doesn't know anything at all about her family or her history. She's 20 years old and has never learned. And yet, she goes to, like, these ruins right outside of town, and there's this man who has been living there for who knows how long, who apparently knows her entire backstory. And it's just like, what? This guy is just there, like waiting for you. Nobody else has found this man yet. I don't know. If I didn't have so many books currently on my TBR, I literally have 300 books on my TBR, I probably would try and continue on in this series, but seeing as I am not like ravaging at the mouth, I am not frothing at the mouth, I'm not desperate to learn more about these characters and what is happening next, I'm not going to be continuing on, unfortunately, but I still recommend it. It's cute. It's a sapphic romance. And, you know, we need more of those out there. Next up, we have The Extraordinary Adventures of Alfred Kropp by Rick Yancey. And I gave this book 4.5 stars. This book follows our main character, Alfred, who his dad has never been around. His mom recently died from cancer. And now he is living with his uncle. And his uncle isn't really like the best guy. And so he kind of like convinces Alfred to help him steal the sword. He's like, hey, do you want to go to a foster home? No, I bet you don't. So help me steal the sword. And then Alfred gets wrapped up in this whole entire adventure because it turns out that the sword is actually the sword of Excalibur. And now he's doing his best to get it back from the bad guys that he accidentally gave it to. So much of this book has like Alex Ride vibes, if you are familiar with that story series where it's very action, adventure, intense, heavy. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed Alfred as a character because he had some like autistic stuff going on that I really identified with. And I did try and read the second book in the series. This is a 3-book series. And even though a lot of things was happening in the second book, I just wasn't super into it because a lot of things seemed to be happening to Alfred, whereas Alfred wasn't interacting with the plot at all. He was kind of just there. And that's super boring for me. So I ended up DNFing the second book, unfortunately, but I really did like this one. The next book that I read is Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White, and I gave this book 4.5 stars, and this book actually made it onto my best book of the year list that I am curating already. This follows a trans boy, Benji. It is a post-apocalyptic novel, so it is several years after a virus called the Flood has killed like 99% of the people on Earth. And now there are only 2 groups of people left. There are the Angels, which is the cult that Benji is a part of, and they are the people who initially released the Flood onto the Earth. And then there's all of the non-believers, all the kind of like regular non-religious people who still happen to still be alive. So Benji has been infected with a special strain of the Flood that is supposed to be turning him into the Seraph, and then is supposed to be his job to like murder the last of the people on Earth and help everybody ascend to heaven, which is such a crazy, insane concept. And so he's trying to run away from that, and he meets a group of queer kids at the local LGBT center where all these kids are kind of just hanging out. And yeah, just the end of the world apocalypse stuff. This book is very, very heavy in religious imagery and body horror. So if you are somebody who is either triggered by those things or very interested in these things, then you either need to stay very far away from this book or you should read this book right now. If you grew up in a very religious household, this might be like very cathartic to you. There is a lot of Bible quotes and stuff, and I didn't grow up in a religious household, so I feel like I probably missed quite a bit. But this is just so good and so intense and just like, damn. I like this enough that I actually end up putting the rest of Andrew Joseph White's work on my TBR. It's only really 1 book so far, but still I was like, damn, if this is the type of shit that we are doing, then I definitely want to read more about it. The only thing that kept this from being a 5-star for me is the kind of love interest, Nick, is autistic, and there were definitely some aspects of the autism that were not portrayed the best, but it was pretty good overall. Next up, we have The Escape Room by Megan Golden, and this book I gave 3.5 stars. This focuses on a group of lawyers where everybody's really cutthroat. You know, you go behind each other's back and like stab people because you're trying to like rise to the rank of the best lawyers. So they're super competitive, and all these lawyers get trapped in this elevator where you need to like look around for all these clues to try and get out of the elevator alive. I've read quite a few of Megan Golden's work in the past, and this is definitely my least favorite of hers that I have read so far. It wasn't bad in any sense, but it was very simple. The ending was very rushed and kind of felt like that's it. There was also an autistic character in this book, and the portrayal of it was okay. I liked it at sometimes. The character really reminded me of Kagami from Miraculous Ladybug, but also at the same time, I was like, okay, um, this girl is autistic. But she ain't stupid. Like she can, I'm sure that she can manage to figure out a way to learn how to like match clothes and stuff like that. I don't know. Either way, I'm still interested to see the rest of the things that Megan Golden has written because I do enjoy her writing and her stories so much. Next up, we have The Plot to Kill King by William F. Pepper, and I gave this book 5 stars. This is a completely nonfiction book about what actually happened with Martin Luther King Jr. It was written by a lawyer who worked with him and a lawyer who spent many, many, many years investigating and interviewing and finding documentation and tracking down people. And he could very much have been killed at any point while making this book or at any point like afterwards. I'm surprised he wasn't, but it kind of seems like common knowledge for the American public at this point that the government is the people who killed Martin Luther King Jr., not James Earl Ray. And this is the book about why we know that. And so I felt like it was very important for me to actually like sit down and spend time reading about why it is that we know that the government did this and not actually James Earl Ray. All right, the next book that I read in January was World War Z by Max Brooks, and I gave this book 2.5 stars. If you have seen the movie for this, this is not the same as the movie. The movie has an actual like plot and main character and like beginning and end, whereas this is from the point of view of a journalist who is going around to a bunch of places in the world and just interviewing people who lived through the zombie apocalypse and what their experience was and all sorts of stuff. If you are somebody who is very interested in world building and politics and military, you will probably be very interested in this because there's a lot of that. But if you are somebody like me who really likes plot and character and stuff, you will find this to be very boring because there is absolutely none of that. There were definitely things about this that I found to be very interesting. I liked the different psychological aspects that Max Brooks brought up, but then there were other things that felt very repetitive and boring. There were so many chapters that were just talking about different types of military equipment and different ways that we use this military equipment to try and fight against zombies and like all of this stuff. And like after a while, it just gets so boring and you kind of get to a point where you're like, why am I even reading this? Because it's not like there's any sort of like climax or conclusion or anything like that. So it seems like an interesting like study of what the world might be like if we had a zombie apocalypse, but it isn't in any way like an actual story, I guess. The next book that I read is Yesterday's History by Kosoko Jackson, and I gave this book 1.5 stars. This book is about our main character, Dre, who has liver cancer, but is able to get a new liver thanks to the accidental death of this 22-year-old boy. He dies in a car accident, and after getting this liver, Dre finds that now he has the ability to travel through time, because it turns out the person who donated his liver previously was a time traveler. And so now he's kind of getting to know the family of his donor, because they are all also time travelers, while going back in time to the late 60s, early 70s, and meeting this boy and falling in love with him and having this whole like cross time romance. The main reason why I gave this book such a low rating is that I feel like it would have been bad. This is kind of like a romance, and I feel like if this was more like a thriller type book, then it would have been way more interesting, because there were some concepts that were introduced that I was like, ooh, that would be a super interesting and kind of like messed up thing to happen. But that wasn't what this book was about. And it also seemed to me like Kosoko Jackson really needs to do more research into New England queer history. Kosoko Jackson is from the DC area, and this book takes place in Boston, and he makes it very clear that it's in Boston. They bring it up so much for some reason, but based on some of the things that is talked about, I am somebody who grew up in Rhode Island. I grew up very near Boston. So some of the things that were mentioned, I was not happy about. Kosoko Jackson has clearly never heard of P-Town before, and that made me so upset. Please do research into queer New England. There is so much stuff that happened there. That's like the birthplace of the revolution for our rights and stuff like that. So I don't know why we keep ignoring New England and the contributions that have been made there. And then the last actual book that I read this month was Who I Was With Her by Nita Tindall. I gave this book 5 stars, and this also got onto my best books of the year list. This is about our main character, Corinne, who is a closeted bisexual girl who is secretly dating a rival from her other school. They are both track stars. And one day, her girlfriend tragically dies in a car accident. And now Corinne has to deal with the fact that she just lost the girl that she loved. Nobody knows that they were in a relationship. Maggie wanted them to come out, but Corinne was too scared to. And now what is she going to do? Where is she going to go to college? Should she come out? But when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter, like whatever she decides to do and the choices that she makes, because Maggie's never coming back. That's really the overarching theme of this, is that, oh, how do we go on after the death of people that we loved? Like, we're always talking about, like, we gotta live our best life for our loved ones and stuff like that. But also, how do you do that? How can your life be the best when your loved one isn't in it? You know? And it's just so heart-wrenching. It's written so simply, and yet you could just feel all of the conflict of emotions and all sorts of stuff that is going on here. It's really hard for books to make me cry, but this book definitely did, just purely based on like the theme of it doesn't matter what choice you'll make. You'll never be able to bring her back. Oh my God, that's just a heart-wrenching concept, just so much. All right, so that is it for all of the regular books that I read this month. If that's all that you're interested in, thanks so much for stopping by. If not, here comes all of the manga weeb shit. And the first one that we have is I Think Our Son is Gay, Volume 4 by Okura. I gave this book 5 stars. I am obsessed with this series. This series is so adorable and so cute. It is from the point of view of the mom, where her son is clearly gay, but he's still in the closet, but he's also really bad at hiding it. But she's starting to reevaluate the way that she interacts with culture and the way that she interacts with queer people in Japanese culture. And she's now starting to make changes and kind of lay this groundwork so that when her son does finally decide to come out, he will feel safe about it, and he'll like know that his parents are going to support him and stuff like that. I really like reading this because it analyzes like so many different aspects of queer culture, like not just being gay. Like the other son is very clearly ace and struggles with different aspects of transgenderness, where he himself isn't necessarily trans, but he kind of likes more feminine things. He likes to wear his hair long, he likes to spend more time with girls, things like that, and frequently gets made fun of for it. And so there is that aspect there. And there's just so many good discussions in here, but also at the same time, it is so cute and wholesome to see this woman just making all of these little steps just to try and make the world a little bit safer for her sons. Next up, I have Manly Appetites Minagishi Loves Otsu by Mito. This is a workplace office romance, huge Grumpy Sunshine vibes, where this guy, Minigishi, is very handsome and very sunshine, and he has a huge crush on Otsu, who is not as typically good looking. And so he kind of has this really like gruff viewpoint on the world. And he kind of dislikes Minigishi because he's so happy and stuff all the time. And he's always like, oh, look at this guy. Everybody loves him because he's so handsome and he's so friendly and stuff. And yet, Minigishi keeps on buying Otsu all sorts of food because he knows that that's the thing that makes Otsu happy, and he just loves seeing him smile. And like everybody else in the office seems to like see that they have kind of this like romance going on where they're like, what is your relationship? What is happening here? But they kind of like don't really recognize it, especially Otsu. He super doesn't recognize the fact that he and his coworker are like in love. I don't know. It's adorable. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I don't think that I said that. There's a lot of things that I really like about this. You could definitely argue that this is kind of problematic because Minigishi is a little bit like feedery. However, he also makes it obvious that the reason why he likes to feed Otsu is because that's the thing that makes Otsu happy. And if there was something else that made Otsu happy, then that would be the thing that Minigishi would be focusing on. He just wants to make Otsu smile, and that's really all that it is. And it's just cute to see a Japanese character where they have a larger body type, but they are not the joke. The entire point is to focus on like having a fun and good time eating and sharing food with a loved one and stuff like that. He's never shamed for eating, and he's never shamed for liking to eat. He's usually encouraged for it, which that is a nice change of pace in Japanese media. The next manga that I read was volume 23 of Demon Slayer by, who is it? Koyu, I should have practiced this beforehand. Koyuhara Gotoge. This is the last book in the Demon Slayer series, and I gave it 5 stars. Oh, Demon Slayer is so good. It is my favorite, or one of my favorite anime, and I'm very excited for the next season to be coming out within the next few weeks, few months. It's supposed to be coming out in spring, I believe. In case you're not familiar with Demon Slayer, it is about our main character whose entire family is slaughtered by demons except for his younger sister. She is accidentally or purposefully infected to become a demon, and now he is doing his best to kill all the demons out there to try and bring humanity back to his sister. I'm very sad that it's over, but it was such a good series. Next up, I got Haikyuu Volume 3 by Haruchi Furudate. There isn't really much to say about this. 5 stars. It is a manga about boys who play volleyball. That's kind of all you need to know. The next series that I read was the Crossplay Love series. Volume 7 just came out, and I decided to reread the entire series because of that. This is by Toru, and I gave this 5 stars. This is my favorite manga series. It is about these two boys who both enjoy cross-dressing as girls and have fallen in love with each other as girls, but don't realize that the other is a guy. And they also know each other at school, but dislike each other as guys. They don't realize who the other person is. This features my favorite trope, which is a love square between two people, and is just hilarious, adorable, cute. So much fun. The next manga series that I read was PTSD Radio by Masaki Nakayama, and I gave this series 5 stars. There are 6 volumes in this series, but it isn't full in the series. So if you're planning on reading this, like maybe skip ahead for spoilers, but this also technically isn't spoilers because it isn't like the actual plot of the manga. And also like what happened with this is so crazy. Absolutely insane. What? So the plot of this manga focuses on these different characters who all kind of have like these creepy specters following them around. There's a lot of hair stuff going on where their hair is getting pulled, or they'll wake up and there is hair around them, or they're getting eaten by hair monsters. All sorts of just really freaky stuff. Very Junji Ito-esque. But then, like halfway through volume 5, there is a hard tonal shift and hard, like, shift in the art where all of a sudden the artist comes in and says, "Hey guys, I know that I haven't put out any chapters in a few months." Because the way that manga works in Japan is that it isn't released like all at once. One chapter is released at a time serially, either online, or they will bound all of these single chapters together with a bunch of other manga that are also coming out at the time. So all of a sudden, the author is saying, "Hey guys, I know that I haven't published any chapters in a few weeks, but it's because I got super sick with this really rare illness and I almost died, and now I'm in the hospital and I'm recovering, and all of these creepy things that are happening to me, all of this stuff that was happening to my characters in this manga is now happening to me, and it's super spooky." And I'm reading this and I'm like, is this a bit? Because there are definitely plenty of authors who like do a bit for their work to try and like make it seem more legit, scarier, stuff like that. But then I Googled it, and y'all, this is not a bit. The author really did get a super rare disease and nearly died after having a spooky encounter. And the encounters that he has been having with ghosts since then has become so intense that he just straight up quit being a horror manga artist. That's how much he was being haunted. He just quit his job because, what? Oh my God, are you kidding? No. I don't really get like freaked out by stuff, but like that is something that really makes me kind of start to question stuff. I am a hard believer in kind of like, oh yeah, the people who see ghosts in their houses, like a lot of the times in old houses, it's because there's carbon monoxide poisoning and stuff that people aren't aware about, and lots of other like toxins that can make you see stuff. And that's usually where ghost sightings come from. But then things like this happen, and then I start to wonder if they're how much more and legit spooky stuff is. I don't know, it's just overall freaky. Oh my God. Anybody who knows about this or like looks into it, let me know in the comments down below. Like what are your thoughts on this? This is freaky as fuck. Anyway, back to my wrap up. The next book that I read was Twilight Out of Focus by Giannomi, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. This features 2 roommates where one of them is gay, the other one is straight. The gay one is still in the closet though, it's like only his roommate knows. And the main character, the straight guy, is a part of a filmmaking club. And because they go to an all-boys school, they decide that they're going to do a boys love romance because it would just be easier to do a boys love romance than to try and like find some girl. And they end up casting the gay roommate, even though they don't know that he is actually gay. He just happens to be cast because he fits like the punk personality really well. And as they are filming this, the straight roommate starts like getting really jealous and being like, holy shit, am I actually in love with my roommate? So yeah, that was cute and adorable. There are 3 other books in this series. They don't focus on these 2 characters, they focus on other characters and their romance. So they're kind of like standalone, but everybody is also a part of like this same group, kind of. And then the last book that I read in the month of January is Hollow Fields by Madeline Roska. This is a 3-volume series that follows Lucy Snow. She is 9 years old. She is going to a new school, but she accidentally ends up going to the wrong school. And this school is a school made for the children of evil scientists, and they are learning themselves how to become evil scientists and do evil science stuff. And at the end of every single week, the child with the lowest GPA ends up being sent to the windmill for detention, and they never come back, and it's obvious that they're being used for like some sort of medical experiment or whatever. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I don't know if I said that. I'm kind of forgetting about doing the star ratings for the mangas. I rate all of them so consistently, so high. I almost always give like 4.5 or 5 stars to manga. Don't know why. I just enjoyed them so much. Anyway, those were all of the books that I read in the month of January. Let me know your thoughts down below. Have you read any of these? Are you interested in reading any of these? What did you read in the past month? If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Blah, blah, blah. Obligatory YouTube outro. And besides that, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Bye.